Live on there.
So you want to just bring your mic back to you and so that you're not. So we were trying to make like a round table out of it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. And we're ready?
Yep.
And go.
What's up, everybody? It's the Life on Life's Terms podcast, and I'm Tom Robinson. And like I always say, we're not affiliated with any 12-step program. I'm very excited about this podcast. Should be excellent. We got a repeat performance.
Yes, we do. I'm Chris Mandeville. I'm a heroin addict in recovery, and we are here at a New Way Recovery Center in Quincy on Quincy Ave. If you're in the area, you're looking for resources, they have tons of things here, tons of meetings all week, every day.
It's a great place.
Yes, if you go on a New Way Recovery Center Facebook group, they post pictures of what they have every day. You can find us at LOLTerms.com.
Please subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe, like, share.
The audio podcast is excellent. Sounds good.
If you're watching this now, you can share it so that we can get the message out even further.
Yeah, and speaking of messages, today's, it occurs to me that a lot of our messages is trying to reach out to people in early recovery, or so that people identify with the story of the guests and stuff like this. And this might be a little bit of that, but I think this is more geared towards growth within recovery.
Absolutely.
Today,
absolutely,
I would say. We'll see what happens, but that's what I'm guessing.
Yes, and like you could see in the post, we have Mike Gavoni. He was one of our early guests before we did the Facebook Live. I think before we even had a Facebook group.
Yeah, it's like our third guest or second guest. Or third, I think. Yeah,
but I've known Mike for many years, and so has Tom.
Yep. We used to call him G-Bone.
Yeah.
One of the many nicknames.
Yeah. And like to see his transformation and watch his journey and like be involved in it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to turn it over to Mike, and let's do it.
Awesome. Well, hello, listeners, and Chris and Tom, thank you for bringing me on today.
Thanks for doing this again, man.
Absolutely. It's nice to see you guys and hang out and share with you a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope, if that's what you want to call it. It's been quite the ride. Overall, I'm just another human being here on planet Earth. I happen to be in long-term recovery.
Yeah,
in my 14th.
The human being, the spiritual being with the human existence.
I'm just in this meat suit.
Yes.
This human shell.
Yes. A vessel.
Yep. Just like a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been quite the ride in recovery, I must say. I thought I was going to be that guy, sitting on his porch at 80 years old, rolling up spliffs, just enjoying life. And wow, did I get taken for a side journey here. So yeah, my journey is one of pain into purpose and evolving, in a spiritual. On a spiritual journey, and it hasn't been easy, but it's been quite beautiful. And out of that pain has developed my purpose, which is to help others suffer less on their journey. So I think that's what it's about overall.
And not just pain of active addiction. There was other pains that help you grow too.
For sure, then that's what it's all about. I mean, stepping in the door of 12-step or whatever your journey might be for all you listeners. It's that's really the first step on the journey is actually putting the substance down, and then the real work actually begins.
That's when it all starts.
That's when it all starts.
The real work, the real gifts.
Also, that's when you start to losing your shit. When you don't have your solution anymore.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
In a different way.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of us just keep switching seats for a long time, and that was my story. I just would pick up one thing, after another. I'd put the booze and drugs down, and I'd pick up chasing status and homes and muscles and building up my armor in the gym and all that sort of stuff, until the day came when the pain was great enough, and I had to do the inner journey, as I like to say, and that's what it's all about in general. Even if you're not in substance abuse, you're here on planet Earth, and you're here to do work, but we're all here on a mission.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the prompting, or what was the catalyst to that next growth?
Yeah. So the catalyst for me, that shift, came in the form of an illness 9 years into recovery, in the form of irritable bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, which really stemmed from my childhood trauma. As we all know, or if you don't know, that trauma gets stored in the body, in the neurobiology, the mind-body system, and it was my weakest link basically was my gut, and it developed. The disease turned to disease, and then that's when the real work. I couldn't stop the running anymore.
And it's crazy because I've been like doing a little bit of research on what you just said. Like the trauma is stored in our body itself. Not just in our mind.
It's amazing if you look into it. What they're finding out about the gut biome. It's
your brain is connected to your stomach. Your stomach's connected to everything. It's crazy.
Right. The organisms in your brain affect the nerves in your gut. I mean, the organisms in your gut affect the nerves and affect from trauma.
And the chemical factory really for the neurotransmitters for your brain is in your gut. So
right.
If you're struggling with depression, anxiety, and so forth, and you haven't addressed any gut issues, that may be a place to start. And for me, that's obviously where the problem was, because I had irritable bowel disease. But yeah, so many linkages, so much cool science these days that support the gut-brain axis and the vagus, and so that's kind of where the journey began, and it's been rolling ever since. Now it was about 6 years ago when I had to leave Western medicine because that paradigm wasn't working for me anymore, and I went.
They were telling you what? Yeah. What were they telling you?
Well, to remove my colon was the option, or one of the options, and then from one of the medications was I may need a liver transplant in 7 or 8 years. So I was. 2 major organs there that you don't really want to lose, and getting rid of either of them didn't sound right to me, so I began on a holistic journey, holistic healing journey in recovery.
And the bottom line of that, just to make the stark contrast real quick, is that now you're completely healthy.
I am, and I wouldn't say 100% because we all, I'm human, and my body's only getting older every day. But I'd say a 95% difference.
Liver's good?
Liver's good, yeah.
Digestion works good?
Digestion's cranking, yeah.
Yeah. But this is what you need to do. We need to cut out your colon, and we're going to give you medication, and that's going to fuck up your liver.
Dude, I go to my doctor, and he sounds like he's talking down to me.
I mean? That's what you get. And for the listeners out there, let me make a more kind of aha point for you, is if you're on the other end of this and you're struggling from illness and recovery, because that's part of life, we get old, we get sick, we die. But no doctor ever looked at me and asked me what happened to me in childhood, right? Here I am, 26 years old, and I have irritable bowel disease, right? I'm going, the bathroom 20 times a day with blood in it, and my whole colon's ulcerated. But no doctor ever said to me, Michael, tell me a story. Tell me what happened to you.
That just makes me think of the fact that there has been so much correlation between the brain and the body, and how the brain affects the body, and how placebos will work amazing cures, but yet they refuse to acknowledge it. It's 2 separate sciences, 2 separate disciplines, and we treat an illness, but we don't prevent it by treating the mind and the spirit. You know what I mean?
So you have to treat the whole person, and in the context of recovery, we have to treat the whole person there too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. threefold disease.
Yeah, and you know, it's not like I can just keep showing up in a church basement, although don't get me wrong, that's a beautiful place and that's where I got sober, that it's going to actually, you know, heal those deeper wounds.
Well, I'd like to say this about that. Okay, so the church basement and keep showing up. When you're in early recovery, it's the ambulance on the way to the hospital. You know what I mean? It's like the EMTs that got you and they're doing the heart pumps and whatever.
Yeah. Chest compressions.
Yeah. And but also, church basement is us going back there to give back to the people who are in that condition.
Yes.
And to help them in some way. And I'm the worst. I'm guilty of not helping. You know, I'm not by any means talking on a high horse here because I am the worst at it. But I see and I appreciate the heroes that go back there time and time again to help
give back.
To give the hand at AA or 12
recovery.
Yeah, that's beautiful, you know. And
but
that's
I also
important.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and please, listeners, don't get me wrong. It's 12-step is beautiful, and it's a beautiful fellowship. And church basement, you know, basements are a wonderful place to start that path. But what I'm saying is that's just the beginning.
Yeah,
just the beginning.
And it says in that literature that, you know, we must be willing to grow along spiritual lines, and that means
there you go.
Continuously.
Yeah,
not just in the beginning.
Sure.
You know.
Yes, totally, and. That's kind of what it's about, is to keep growing and evolving. And I find myself now in my 14th year of recovery and in places with people dancing and chanting and moving and grooving. Like I never thought that would ever happen, you know?
So it's crazy. Like Mikey went from hanging next to the DJ booth at like all these sober events, right? Like just going hard, to like almost like giving up everything, throwing on a fucking backpack and going on your journey. Like, it's crazy. Like that's real. Like you really did that.
Yes, I did. I jumped on a plane and did my first trip, 9 countries, solo. Dropped into Mexico. Ended up in Santiago, Chile, 5.5 months later. And it was a beautiful experience. And don't let me kid you, I'm still known to be hanging out at a DJ booth here and there.
Right? Just in Colombia or something now.
So yeah, and then, you know, that's what recovery is all about, is discovering yourself, seeing the planet, enjoying life, opening up to Mother Earth. It's beautiful. And yeah, that's been my journey, all the way into, you know, the jungles of Costa Rica, and working with, you know, shamans and plant medicine and all those different avenues to help me heal. And when I say heal, the word I wanna emphasize here is heal trauma, because a lot of people don't want to talk about the trauma, and that's why we're all here, you know.
And it's crazy, like people don't want to talk about the trauma, but the trauma is what was the catalyst to where you got, or addiction, or what. Like there's people suffering everywhere from things, and you know, not everybody turns to drug addiction or alcoholism.
That's right.
Because of their suffering.
Yes,
but that does not mean that they are not suffering.
The pain body. Well,
you know, they could have, like we were discussing earlier, people can go through the same exact thing and end up in 2 different places.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask. Like, what do we think constitutes trauma? Because it's such a wide and term that just gets used, you know.
Like I've been doing a little bit of research, and trauma could be a trauma could be like your dad not showing up to pick you up after the fucking Little League game. That could be a trauma.
Well, I think it must be
but then it
deeply
can get
personal,
way
right?
more severe.
Trauma is very deep, and I'm not an expert on trauma, nor am I speaking in that fashion. But I will say that
none of us are.
from learning from the Peter Levines and the Bessel van der Kolks of the world is trauma happens when when an event happens and the nervous system becomes over aroused and it can't process that whole. It can't process the energy that happened from the trauma, and what happens is the trauma gets locked up, stuck in the body, in the neurobiology, in the mind-body system, and the process of the energy from the trauma happening, it can't live its full life. So what happens is the trauma occurs, and then it gets stuck at the body level.
So like at cellular level?
I mean, I once again, I'm not speaking in terms of a expert here, but I mean, and also trauma can be passed down. In my specific case, epigenetically. I experienced trauma in my mom's womb, and that was really a significant thing that happened to me when I was in my mom's uterus.
In utero, yeah.
So your mother experienced emotional trauma, and it was passed to you in utero. Is that what you're saying?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
And then later on in life, I happened to develop immunologic immune system. Ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune condition, and then from the intercorrelation between the gut and the brain, I developed neurological symptoms. So that, I think, was setting the tone. So back in the context of listeners, trauma happens, and sometimes it's so subtle that it's bypassed and people don't recognize it's trauma. But most of us who are in addiction, if I was to put 10 people in this room and say, I don't need to hear details, but raise your hand if you've experienced trauma, I bet most of the people would raise their hand. I think the stat for adverse childhood experiences is, I think it's maybe 9 out of 10. Excuse me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, is it possible that people react in different ways, and that some people may be more sensitive and be affected more? I found that to be true with people I've known.
Yeah, it's like when I went to see a therapist, my therapist had me write down what I thought was trauma in my life and put a big T for a major trauma or a little T for a minor trauma. And I wrote these things down and I did as he asked, and he was like, what you have written here, I consider a major trauma, but you have it minimized as a minor trauma. You know what I mean?
Right.
So people, we experience things differently. Something that might crush one person, someone else might be like,
Totally, and it depends upon everybody. In the world of trauma, everyone handles it differently.
Yes.
So my sister didn't develop autoimmunity. She didn't even become an addict, but she experienced immense trauma too, growing up as a child. And I, being a super sensitive human being.
Yeah,
I identify with that.
Yeah, super sensitive.
That's, I think, is one of the traits with addicts is they're sensitive people. And we don't like to feel emotions because we're too sensitive to them. We can't handle it as kids. I was just very sensitive and assuming different things. Like somebody says something and you assume something, and then you start to feel shame over that. You know what I mean? And and I like to define it as shame, as guilt is you've done something wrong, when shame is you are something wrong. And you start to think that builds. You start to think that you're bad. And then some people I've known, seems like a switch goes off and they decide that, okay, if it seems like I'm bad, I'm just going to be bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll show I'm bad. You know what I mean? And but I think all that could be considered trauma, and the way we deal with it is to try to get into happiness.
Yeah, we try to escape. We try to escape the pain. As Gabor Mate says, the question is never, why the addiction. The question is always why the pain. When I see someone, I work as a recovery coach in the emergency rooms, and a lot of times I go in and I ask them, do you know why you're using heroin every day? And some of them are homeless and, have a backpack and nothing else to their name, and they look at me and they don't know why. And then I say, you're using your substance, your drug of choice, because you're in pain. And then their eyes light up and they give me like that. Yeah, this dude's kind of on to something.
Wow, someone actually knows what's going on.
Knows something about this stuff.
And it's like, wow, like I didn't put together, 2 and 2 for a long time that I was in pain and that I dealt with trauma until, that illness happened and I couldn't run anymore. I had to face the pain. Right. And it's in a loving, compassionate way when I say those words. But really, in the heart of the pain is the healing. But for many of us, including myself, we try and we switch all different behaviors and patterns and ways of being in the world, to escape our pain. And today, for me, it's all about holding space for others and let them know that it's okay. It's okay that that pain happened, and your means to try to escape it is only causing you more suffering. So the Buddhist monk Ajahn Chah, he says there's 2 types of suffering: suffering you run away from and it chases you everywhere, or suffering you face directly and so become free. So even a decade into sobriety, I had to face that inescapable suffering that was stored up and locked up in my body so I could become free. And today, I'm a free man. And I have more work to do, of course, but the way I feel inside today is magnificent. I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Right.
And
well,
go ahead, Tom.
Well, what you taught me about mindfulness was such a key revelation to me, that we don't have to identify as our own thoughts. We are not our thoughts. There is something else there, and I believe that's the essence of what we're recovering when we're in recovery, is we're trying to get to recover the awareness of who we were before we started taking on all this identity. The identity that was forced on us, the identity that we assumed we should take on, the identity, all these different identities that as kids we took on, the clown, the tough guy, whatever, we were already okay. We need to recover that state of being okay already and okay with ourselves.
Yeah, a friend of mine we were talking one day, and he said that, like, as soon as, like, his parents gave him a name, like, it changed. Like, he's no more. He's not like that being anymore. Yeah, And you said the identity that's forced upon us. Like, no, you're gonna play Little League. You're gonna you.
That's right. The labels and all this stuff that happens.
Like we're fucked right from then. Right from then. Boom.
Well, that's
forget
the thing
that
people do to their kids. Oh yeah, you're just you're a dishonest person. They're always looking at you because maybe you didn't tell the truth right away one time, and the next time forever they're always looking at you like you're gonna lie. Well, all of a sudden, I must be a liar. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. And then you keep layering it as experience happens.
Like a buddy of mine. Shout out to Jack Harper. He says the other day.
Jack's great.
We had him on.
He's great.
Anything you put after I am, you are putting like the God stamp on it.
That's
like,
right.
If you say I am a loser, like
that's right.
That's why I struggle with the words I am an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I haven't said that word in 6 years.
Really?
Yeah. And no, if you're a listener and that's what you identify with, then please do what's best for you. And for me, it's just that didn't serve me. So going back to Tom, what Tom said earlier to get this part of the conversation going was, he discovered that he is much more than this thinking mind, and that's actually to come back and recover. So that's what happens, when the wound happens of trauma, is we split off from the true self.
True self. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And to come back to that is actually the healing of trauma. It's actually the evolution of spirit, because that's what we are. Is we are consciousness. We are more than this flesh. We are more than Tom. We are more than Mike. We are more than Chris.
Right.
That's right.
So, but what's beautiful about it is, I believe, and others may have their differences, but I believe that you need the pain in order to awaken to that.
And that's
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like me and a few of my friends, like everyone is fucking sleeping, like so bad, and like there's very few that get to that awakening point where you realize that what we're going through is really nothing.
Exactly.
It's
and that's what I experienced through illness when I was. You guys used to know me. I was 190 pounds, 189 pounds, jacked.
Exactly.
Chasing the ladies, doing all that, and then I got withered down to nothing from illness, and by going in and meditating, I got to see what I wasn't. So therefore, I realized what I was, which was. That wholeness that is already there, that loving, compassionate witness that can hold all of this phenomena of feelings, thoughts, emotions, sensations, and so forth. Now, hang with me, listen, stay with me, that we are more than this arising and passing away phenomena. We are the loving presence that's behind all of it. Right, the guest house. I think Rumi wrote that poem. The shame, the malice, the anger. Invite them in, for they too need room in your home. Have tea with them, invite them, and then they will leave. So we have to come back to that. We have to come back to ourselves. Come back home. So my mentor would say, all sickness is homesickness. All healing is self-healing, a journey back home to your true self. So this is it in recovery too, is we need to recover that essence and that sense of self that's been missing or cut off from the original trauma.
Right. That disconnection
exactly
that happened.
And as Chris said so beautifully earlier when we were talking off the air, was most of us are living from that limbic part of the brain, right? In the back of the brain, the fight or flight or freeze.
Yes. That's right.
And
the reptilian brain. Primal, acting primally.
Totally.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done your trauma work, you will keep living from that place of reactivity that harbors your worry, your anxiety, your fear, your neurosis, all that sort of stuff, until you begin to work at the somatic level of the body.
Yes.
What's somatic?
Somatic means at the level of the body. So actually working in a practice or a therapeutic modality that brings you back into the body.
Yeah. Who was the author that you had told me to look into? They talked
Bessel
about
van der Kolk.
Yes.
The body keeps
how was
score.
it? Yeah, it was S. I can't remember the initials
of
how
somatic
it was.
experience.
Yes.
So that's another therapy. So if you're listening out there and you're like, yeah, well, how the hell do I do this, right? Or how do I heal my trauma? Is you have to go back to your body, and you have to have someone that knows what they're doing, or is trauma informed, or specializes in trauma, to help you really come back home to yourself and integrate the story of what happened to you. Because let's face it, we all have a story, don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
And we have to feel what's underneath that story and integrate the limbic system with the prefrontal cortex like this.
Yeah,
and
which we don't really use.
No, and if you're suffering from trauma, then your prefrontal cortex is probably out to lunch.
Yeah,
and you're just running on the limbic brain.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you operate in fight or flight. Well, see, fear is the runaway, but it's also the other half of anger, which is the fight. So the flight is the fear, and the anger
That was crazy.
is the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize it's the same emotion. It's just a different decision. So they feel more.
Yeah.
People feel more comfortable or feel less vulnerable when they're angry. So they get into that anger mode.
And it's like crazy. My therapist, he told me, he's like, we have like 3 basic things. It's like three basic things that we need to do. It's kill. How did he say? Eat, kill, and fuck. Like that's how he worded it to me. So like we need
Things
to
take priority in that list.
But over the years of addiction, you can change that order, or even put addiction into that primal brain. And so like for us to be put in a situation and we turn to drugs, like it's because we're reacting primally. Like we don't even get to think.
That's right.
You don't even go through any type of process. It's like fucking, like it becomes part of our fight or flight.
It's the
That's right.
it's the unconscious
It's the
attempt to escape it. To
It would
escape
be the
pain.
flight,
It's
the flight
drugs.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's
You
something,
get high.
if there's
It's
something
the
we
flight
don't
part.
like, if there's something we don't like, first we'll probably get angry and punch it in the face, being men,
right.
But
And
then
because we're scared to death.
Then we'll go.
Yeah,
We're
exactly,
scared to death.
scared,
Then we'll
yeah.
go to the flight part where we go get high.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
So-
escape reality.
Totally. And I think to bring up a point is like for a long time, like I don't know about you guys, but like to fight was how to operate.
Yeah.
And it was too vulnerable to actually tell another human being, hey, you like hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't even
That's right.
up for discussion. It was just like, let me
And I heard it in the rooms and the halls, like, being an alcoholic, like, hit me in the fucking head with a bat, but don't hurt my feelings. Like, I'll take the physical pain, the emotional shit I
physical
can't
pain.
deal with.
It's funny because I had an interaction with somebody when I was coming here, and years ago I probably would have been different. I've never been a physical fighter person. That's why I trained for a while, because I enjoy it. But anyway, so I was coming across the street to get my coffee, and I wanted to make the light. I was in a hurry, and I ran across the street right in front of this guy, and he was rolling forward. Well, I surprised him. There was a red light, but he was rolling forward. I surprised him. He didn't see me coming, and he jumped on his brakes, and he rolled down the window, and he goes, "Why don't you watch where you're going, you dope?" Now, I might have felt like I was threatened, or something, if I didn't have a strong identity, which I've developed over the years of being sober.
Right.
And I said, "Hey, sorry, man." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of, "Fuck you."
Right. No, you watch where you're fucking going, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though, because I knew I was in the wrong, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean I would have admitted it years ago. You know what I mean? No way. Because I wasn't strong enough to admit when I was wrong.
Right.
Because I didn't believe I was already okay. You know what I mean? But if you believe you're already okay, and you just, traveling along a spiritual journey, and you make mistakes along the way, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you can believe that, then you don't have to force an ego out there to the world to show a face and to show yourself that you're okay.
Right.
It's not what you're doing now. You can make a mistake.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're shaken to your core, that something, the shame is going to come back and you're not going to be, good enough.
Right, but if we don't learn from it, the universe will keep giving us that lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over and over.
What are you saying? I shouldn't run across the street like that?
over and over.
So, all right, a little while back, you talked about part of your journey, and growth and development and going inside, and you had mentioned plant medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have my own opinion on that, and like, it's funny because those in a certain 12-step program, one of the founders experimented with this stuff as well.
Well, I think he experimented with LSD.
Yes, but it was to
Psychedelic.
yes, a
Yeah.
psychedelic to try and grow
He
spiritually.
grew spiritually, correct.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's lots of people that are like, they get really fucking heated over that shit.
Yeah,
but
well,
it happened, and
could
the man suffered from fucking severe depression. Like, I would want some relief from that too.
Yeah.
You know, and it was crippling for him. Like,
But always
bedridden.
always remember that this is and this is why I said this in the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah,
This is far into recovery stuff.
Yes.
This
This
isn't
isn't-
you go from detox to down doing
No.
Yeah.
So, if you wouldn't mind elaborating on that.
Well, it's up to you.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with it. And
All right.
I just want to say, too, that, I explored with plant medicine last year in the highlands of Costa Rica with a Colombian shaman with some pretty beautiful intentions that were coming from a place of wholeness and not from a place as if something was already wrong with me. And that is because that I had my dark night of the soul through that illness and that we'll just say, and my doorway to my shift of consciousness was through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I do follow a Buddhist path, a Buddhist meditation path, and not to put myself in a Buddhist box either, but that's just a meditation path, and that's more of a philosophy than anything else. But I wanted to explore and see what plant medicine, had for me in terms of healing my heart. So the set and setting is so very important with this type of medicine. I know people are going to you can go find ayahuasca in downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan or whatever the case may be, and that's just not the real. Yeah, I'm sure you could find it in the 20-mile radius of where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just not really, how that specific medicine is really supposed to be used.
Yeah.
So it's really used with a master who knows the plants, typically from the Amazon. So it could be from Brazil, could be from Peru, could be from Colombia.
And it's supposed to be an experience. It's not.
It is quite the experience, and for me, I did 3 ceremonies, which were 3, ceremonies you drink at night, and you're around a sacred fire, and there's purging that's involved. So for people that don't know what ayahuasca is, it's actually 2 plants. But the ayahuasca is a vine, and it's a really powerful hallucinogenic, and it's intended for healing and awakening.
And what the compound is that does it is DMT, correct?
Dimethyltryptamine,
which is in all living things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just in higher concentrations in these.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
items.
I've looked into it, with no intention of doing it ever because I was sober and all this stuff. But the more I hear about it, it's not that type of thing. But the first question I know that always occurs to me that I always want to find out, and this is the first time I've been firsthand, is do you feel like you were in contact with a spiritual realm during that time?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And ayahuasca is a spirit, and they know her, as the grandmother or the mother. She's the mother plant, grandmother plant, and she's super powerful, and she grants you access to deeper parts of yourself that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And I think it's really important that it's brought in this context too, with people that are listening from who are in recovery, because this medicine has done wonders for people that have been struggling for a long time with deep trauma and addiction. And this is just my personal take on it, from someone that has experience with it and someone who's who has experience with addiction. Is it forces you to go to those places that you wouldn't have gone otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And it forces you to go to those places, and it gives you access to those places that you wouldn't be able to go. Now, like I said earlier, I had access to those places through meditation,
Right, 'cause
under
you
the
had been-
conditions of suffering.
Yeah,
And
'cause
you're
you had been
talking-
doing a lot of things long before this.
Yeah, but really nothing where I knew that this was going to happen. So
right.
I'll be honest with you. I say this and I respect plant medicine dearly. Is my experience through awakening through meditation looked like it made ayahuasca look like a skip in the tulip park.
Yeah, right.
That's
right.
how much I had like a near-death experience, and heart opening and all that sort of stuff through the practice of mindfulness, of deep concentration, jhana states they may call them in Buddhism. To really get in touch with things as they are, so
just to touch on back on what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
these places that ayahuasca let you go, they were within yourself, finding out more about yourself. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. And for me, and if you get 100 people here who've done ayahuasca, you're going to get 100 different stories.
Yeah.
So just
and
to
there's
let
some there's some people that I love and respect that have done this stuff, and like I do not view them any differently at all.
Yeah, so people who say ayahuasca is a drug or it's
Recreational drug.
I don't think their consciousness is ready
Right.
for ayahuasca.
Yeah.
They don't quite know about the plant or about the medicinal therapeutic value that ayahuasca potentially can gift you with, nor do they have understanding of the medicine men and women who actually serve this, who are true healers of the Amazon. True gifted healers. I mean, this man came out of the Putumayo region of Colombia and literally sucked the bad energy out of my stomach region in the middle of ceremony and began, spitting it out in the jungle and sucking it up through a double-headed crystal and spitting it in the jungle. And he's working on my energy body. And through that experience, and the first ceremony was beautiful. I had that healing that he did for me. I grieved some of the loss of my parents early morning, but nothing really shifted until the third ceremony. And then the third ceremony, I had an experience. It's all I can say, guys, is it was like defragging a hard drive.
Right.
Like that's like I was like going through all these different layers of
self.
Oh my God, and I ultimately wanted to get to my heart. That was my intention. I just got engaged. Now, I was separated from my mom at 3 years old. So if you can imagine, I have woman issues or relationship and intimacy issues. And I really wanted to be present for this, experience of engagement and commitment and love. And that was my intention. And I feel like that has been happening. And ayahuasca just doesn't stop after after the last ceremony. It continues to work in your consciousness, in your body.
And we talked briefly earlier, like some of the people I listen to their podcasts, like they're like normal people and they've done this stuff, and it's amazing, like what I get from these people that I listen to, which they say they wouldn't be where they are if they hadn't done this. And they're not drug addicts or alcoholics or anything.
Oh,
they're
no.
just like,
Yeah.
like...
Well, it just shows you, like, it doesn't matter if you're addicted or not, guys. We're all humans.
Right.
Like the category of addict and non-addict, or I used to hear, what is it, earth people?
Yes.
Like they call them
Earthlings.
earth people.
Yeah.
We're all the same, and we're all whole. So, your Buddha nature, your Christ conscious, your Atman, that purity is all the same in each and every one of us. So
this is true.
So your story, like if I told you the depth of my story, yeah, it was crazy. It was tons of trauma, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm no different than the physician next door who may not be an addict or an alcoholic, or the physician that may come in with his white coat on to treat me, or the shaman who's working, or the Dalai Lama, or the, you know, whatever it may be.
That's true. But the distinction that people are making is it's a tool to make you realize that you can't drink like normal people, right? You know, the way of early recovery, or you know, that ambulance ride, you know, all those tools work. You know,
absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that we have to be set ourselves in that box for the rest of our entire lives.
Absolutely.
Right, because like you get to
still can't drink.
You get to a certain level. You get to a certain level, and you know, even one of the therapists I had seen, he, you know, we discussing the 4th step, and he says, you know, think of something on there. I said, okay. He goes, do you have a feeling attached to it? Yes. Well, then you haven't processed it. You know, so like, I'm not saying that that doesn't help, because 100% you have to look at what you do. But I ended up doing EMDR, and like that is like also like defragging a fucking hard drive, you know, because we have this feeling that's attached to this.
Good for you, man, for doing that. That's good. Yeah,
we have this feeling that we have attached to a moment in time that happened to us, and you know, to actually be okay from that is we have to process it
totally,
and you know, get rid of that feeling, so that when that memory comes into my mind, it doesn't make me feel.
I wouldn't say get rid of it, but learn to be with it in a way that it doesn't keep re-traumatizing you.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's a difference, because everyone wants to get rid of their shit, and it ain't about getting rid of it, because your feelings are going to keep coming.
It's like it's about being okay with it
and integrating it, like you said, back in.
Yeah. It's
so
crazy.
Powerful.
And it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. And if you don't know, I think it's eye movement reprogramming and desensitization. That's what it's called.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like these
really
little paddles in your hand, and they vibrate, alternating. You move your eyes, but how it's described is like me going onto this computer and hitting restart. You know, and it's rebooting my brain.
Yeah. And that's what these other, you know, therapeutic modalities can do. Another one that worked for me amazingly was neurofeedback. And
What's
neurofeedback is well, the way it was explained to me was like, picture a ballerina, and she's practicing her ballet moves, and she's seeing her shadow on the wall, and she's able to correct her posture of her ballerina poses by looking at the shadow. And it's more or less the same concept when you have these little electrodes on your head in different areas, specifically to where you need it to be addressed. And there's a template that you know, your brain waves move through this template, and what happens is your brain begins to correct itself by seeing the distortion. Now, once again, I'm not an expert in this, but in general, it's there. And for me, where the healing came was I had an overactive amygdala at the end. And for people who are listening, you guys don't know what an amygdala is. It's that the almond piece and shaped piece in the middle of your brain that determines the threat, and it gets stimulated.
It
and
enables you to react. Back in the day, it would enable us to react to a threat before thinking about it. So it's a cutoff. So when something happens that is like really scary, you can react immediately, like get out of the way of somebody like a bear swiping at you or something. Without like processing bear swiping.
It's there to save your life.
Yes,
right. And when it keeps going off, which happens to a lot of us in recovery, if we haven't, you know, addressed our trauma, or it can become sensitized and over enlarged, because of trauma, and
Right.
then we have
Physically over-enlarged?
Yeah,
No kidding.
I mean, nothing crazy, but yeah.
Right,
And then
just-
we have anxiety and all, repetitive thinking, panic disorders. So
Yeah.
I began to use this because I didn't share this part of my story, but the inflammation went from my gut to my brain, and I developed what's called a multiple chemical sensitivity. And I was getting triggered by different smells.
I remember from your first episode.
So
Yeah, I remember
the
you talking about
neurofeedback helped me to come down from about the top rung of the ladder, all the way down to like the middle, and then all the way down to the third rung on the ladder, and it was amazing. So
This was a process. It wasn't one
process.
set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
seeing on your
Yeah.
Instagram and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
you had all the
yeah,
shit on
getting
your
hooked
head.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the
I
type
remember
of
that too, yeah.
work that is really necessary, I'd say, if you've experienced that type of trauma and you're still suffering, in recovery, is to maybe go back and try some of those therapeutic processes that can help you with dealing with and processing that trauma. So we covered the ayahuasca a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, and the neurofeedback and the EMDR, and it's just beautiful because
And
these are all
and
available.
you you got where you needed to get with meditation, and
Yeah.
I was discussing with you earlier. I was watching the podcast with Russell Brand and Jay Shetty, who I respect both of them, and both of them have awesome information. And Russell had asked Jay if he had ever done ayahuasca, and he's like, "Yeah, I did it when I was 17, before anything really happened
Before
in
the
his
craze.
life." And he ended up going to monk school and but
Monk school.
yeah, he
That's what they call it. Seems
he
funny.
grew up in London, you know what I mean, and he was he talks about being a chubby kid and all this stuff, but he said that through his meditation practice brought him deeper than, like you said, the ayahuasca
Deeper than the
ever
ayahuasca, yeah.
It, yeah.
did. And he wasn't knocking anyone that had ever done it, but he wanted to he felt he had earned his peace and contentment and enlightenment through his meditation versus through the ayahuasca.
Yeah, and the ayahuasca is just kind of the beginning to have access to those parts that may be locked up, and for you to process and move through, right? Because when you take the substance, you go to the bathroom, you poop and you throw up, and the purging of the lower end is the purging of the body, and then throwing up is the purging of the mind. So you're purging and processing and all that sort of stuff. But let's be real, we can't be on an ayahuasca journey our whole life. So what's just as important is the integration of what happens on that journey with you and the shaman in the sacred ceremony. It's just important to integrate and begin to process that and continue with spiritual practices such as yoga, meditation, maybe breath work.
So taking what you realize or learn or see about yourself from that and expanding it and bringing it into your consciousness.
Exactly, because
your
once you, just on any spiritual path, once you see, we go in with these beliefs a lot of the times, right? I know I was brought up with dogmatic, Christianity, and it was all about believe and believe. But for true spiritual attainment, you have to have realization. You have to shift from a belief to actually realizing it, or actually getting the teaching from the teacher, whether it's Jesus, the yogi, or Buddha, or Krishna, or whatever text or practice you're following, and put the teachings into practice. And in all these great spiritual lineages and traditions is a form of meditation, although you won't really find it so much in Christianity and all that, because things have shifted, books have been lost, people want to control,
right?
So
right.
they bring in the religion aspect of it, and they don't want you to wake up. So neither does the government. So that's why they make all this shit illegal.
Yeah,
the psychedelics.
Christianity,
these are just doorways
contemplation.
in. Yeah, contemplation.
So before we started today, what we were talking about, what we want to go outside something outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
But
The answer
what's the real deal? It's fucking in us already.
The way out is
inside job.
in, people.
Yes.
It's in. It's not with your Corvette and your BMW or those. Those are great to have, and maybe, you know, I aspire to have nice things too. But
Yeah.
the deal is if you want to not suffer and you want to, you know, find that peace, contentment, joy, equanimity, compassion, love, and it's really all of our true aspirations. We just try to find it in different forms. And when you're in ignorance or delusion, we go typically outside of ourselves. We try to get it through these other ways. And I know that all too well because I tried them all.
Yep.
And then eventually we get called back home to healing ourselves.
The prison we are stuck in, the key is on the fucking inside.
It's inside, baby.
Well, here's the thing.
The cell you're in, the key is on the inside.
What you taught me, and I'll be forever grateful to this man, is and what I realize is that every moment that you're not present is a wasted moment. If you're not there, if you're not mindful, if you're not present, it's wasted. You're not fully enjoying your life. You're not fully with your life.
Right. Being present in that moment.
In
This moment. Right
Exactly.
now. Us. You know what I mean?
Exactly. If you're lost in thought, if you're identifying with your thoughts, if you're identifying with the past and with the future
You're
at the
sitting
same
here on your
time,
phone.
alternating between the past and the future and the past and the future, or somebody else's past and future on Facebook or on the phone, you know, then you're not present. And if you're not present, it's like wasting. It's like wasting time.
As the great Vietnamese Buddhist monk would say, you know, when you miss the present moment, you miss your appointment with life. But many of us,
That's what I mean. That's
Exactly.
exactly it.
but we don't know without waking up that we're stuck in a dream. You follow me? The dream of thinking isn't reality, but you don't know that. Right, and look, Chris is over here. Chris over here trying to think his way out of this.
No, I'm listening, man.
You know what I mean? Like
I'm
this is about awakening in recovery, right? I started up this little Facebook page, and I'm trying to get more active on it. But awakening in recovery, and that's what I aspire to help people do in recovery, is to go further. Right? Don't become reliant upon something outside yourself. Or if you don't get to this place or that place, then you're going to become unraveled at the seams. There's deeper work to do to find your inner inner oasis in actually the power that's within you. So you're in the driver's seat. And when you're aware, you're in the driver's seat of your life.
And let me tell you, when you're aware of the present moment, it is easy to just bliss out. I mean, you can feel, you know, just love for all the people around you so much easier. You're just there. The crowding of the thoughts might be going on, but you're not identifying as the thoughts. So they can go on and it's okay, but you're aware. You're aware of what your body's doing. You're aware of what's going on around you. You're there in the moment, and it's just so blissful. It's just there's nothing, I can't even describe it any way. It's just a beautiful state.
And that's to be alive. To be present and embodied is to be alive. So when I teach meditation to a group, typically in a recovery center, and I say, hey, what's your biggest dilemma? People are like, oh, my thinking, or this, the you know, the churning in the mind, or the committee, you might call it. 12 steps.
The shitty committee.
Yeah, and it's like when you cultivate awareness to the shitty committee, you can cultivate that space between the stimulus of the thinking and the response to it. Now, however you respond, or if you can respond in a wise way to what's arising in you, then you can allow yourself to suffer less. Right? And it's you know, when you change the way you be with things, the things you be with change. So when your relationship changes to the committee in your head, then the committee actually will calm down. But if you know, what would they say? What resists persists. if you say, "Oh, I just want this to end," would you stop? You feed it, and then it becomes a wildfire.
Mm.
You know,
Right.
So present moment only.
There you go. All right. Well, looks like we've gone. See?
Yes.
See
Yeah,
that?
we're.
It flies.
But
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming back on.
What a fantastic podcast.
Yeah, we it's
Two
funny
good
because
ones, really good ones in a row.
I was struggling to find a guest this week, and then fucking like bam, the universe provided.
There you go.
And I appreciate you sharing all this stuff like via your social media. I love watching it all.
He said, "I'm going to be in the area." I thought, there are no coincidences.
Right.
And what I didn't even tell you guys is I've been just poking out the last day or so on Instagram and saying, "Hey, you need a podcast guest. You need a podcast guest."
Oh, really?
And then we livened it up and freshened it up here. Yeah,
There we go.
So it's exactly it's all everybody. It's all perfect, right? Can you just sit back and enjoy the ride without trying to control that shit? That's the difficulty, right? The
That's
universe
it,
is
man.
always providing for us.
It
The
is.
signs are always there if we're listening, if we're present. It's beautiful.
And if we're awake.
That's it. You got to be awake to see it.
Yep. Stay woke.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Yes.
We really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Mike.
And like I always say, if anyone is interested in coming on, please message us. Just get a hold of me, Tom, the page itself.
Group page.
I think we have like the fastest Facebook response time.
Awesome.
Hey,
'Cause,
and please share this podcast. I think there was a really good message.
Yes,
It's
always.
a great podcast,
and
please
I
get it
think
out there, everybody.
I think that might be a direction we should go in is like re-interviewing some people and
Re-interviewing,
having some
Topic discussions.
with maybe with previous guests. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you've already heard their story, so
Right.
Maybe we can get a little deeper.
Yep, and maybe some interaction during that too.
Yes,
with our audience.
That kid Derek Lawson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
He's
Hillbilly.
actually
Good dude.
he wanted to come back on and
Yeah, let's get him on,
We'll
man.
do that.
And can I throw a quick plug in?
Oh, yes,
for where you can
absolutely.
Find me.
Yes.
So I do work as a holistic or integrative recovery coach. I have my own business. It's called Breath by Breath Wellness, although I'm rebranding to Mike Cavoni soon, but you can still find it at my info at www.breathbybreathwellness.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Mike Cavoni, all one word, MikeGovoni, or on Facebook at Mike Cavoni with a space in between.
Yes.
Thank you.
And definitely check him out. He knows what he's talking about.
G-Bone!
Look.
All right. Thank you, people.
Thanks, everybody.
LOLTerms.com. Like, subscribe, share.
Peace.
Please. Thank you. Peace.
Cool, man. That was great.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.